welcome. I'm so glad to have this opportunity to talk to our composer in residence, Dr. Scott Perkins, about the piece he wrote for us. So Scott, can you tell us about your experience and background as a composer?
Sure. I started composing when I was 5 years old, and I got more serious about it when I was around 12. And I decided that composing was what I wanted to do with my life when I was getting ready to apply to colleges. So I studied it seriously for the first time as an undergraduate at Boston University, and then I went on to get a master's degree and a PhD in composition from the Eastman School of Music in New York. I have written in many different genres, from chamber music to opera to film music to musical theater, but my true passion is writing for singers, especially choirs. So that's what I'm planning on focusing on for the foreseeable future.
Let's imagine that you're being asked to write a piece for choir and organ for our 25th silver anniversary season. What would be the text of that piece, and how would you go about making that decision?
Right. Well, choosing a text is usually a collaborative experience between the commissioner and the composer. You want something that's going to be appropriate to the occasion for which the piece was commissioned, but you also need to choose something that inspires and speaks to the musical impulses of the composer. If the composer or the organization has a particular artistic mission, as I do, then that has to be considered too. So in the case of a commission for the SCSO's 25th anniversary, it would likely be something celebratory, but something celebratory can look like many things, so we'd have to have a conversation about that. One of my personal missions as an artist is to draw attention to issues surrounding social justice and equity and human rights. So for example, right now I'm writing a 30-minute celebratory piece for the 50th anniversary of the Hartford Chorale in Connecticut. And it's about the backgrounds and histories, some painful, of the people who make up the Hartford community, like immigrants, descendants of slaves, indigenous Americans, and so forth. So it lifts up the people of the choir's community, but it's not all happy-clappy. It's actually pretty political. So a celebratory piece can be serious and joyful at the same time.
So how would you decide what the piece will sound like?
That's hard to know. My musical language varies from piece to piece, and even within pieces, in order to reflect the meaning of the text. But no matter what the text, I'd say my music is usually pretty lyrical. I really like beautiful melodies. And especially in recent years, my music is a little simpler and maybe more direct to the average listener than what a lot of other modern classical composers write. But I can't really say what the piece will sound like until the text tells me what it needs when I read it to myself. In the best of situations, the words just kind of sing themselves to me, and all I have to do is write down the notes I hear, which is a wonderful experience.
Very interesting. How long would it take you to write this piece, Scott?
That can be a tough thing to predict. It depends upon how inspiring the text is and what else I have going on. If I'm really busy with other projects, it can be hard to find not only the time, but also just the headspace I have to be in to write efficiently. By that, I mean that my productivity in a 3-hour composing session can really vary depending upon whether my mind is clear or whether I'm thinking about all the grading that I have to do that's piling up. But sometimes I find a text so inspiring that I start to obsess over it, and I really can't do much of anything else until I've made it into a song, and then it goes by pretty quickly.
How much would a composer charge to write a piece like this?
Different composers charge different amounts, from a few $100s to over $10,000 for a piece of music, if that's how they make their living. So some people have flat fees. Some people charge different amounts based upon the budget of the commissioner. For example, they might charge a volunteer community orchestra a very different amount for a 10-minute piece than they would charge the New York Philharmonic for the same piece. But as for me, I believe that anyone should be able to commission music regardless of how much or how little money they have. So I've recently decided to adopt a pay-what-you-can model for taking on creative projects. So what that means is, if you think my work is worth $5,000 and you have that money to spend, then it'll be $5,000. But if you have an amazingly inspiring project in mind that really speaks to my artistic mission, but you have no budget, then I'll probably take it on anyway, as long as I have time to work on it. I do ask that there be at least one performance of the piece set up in advance, so I'm writing the piece for a specific occasion, and that the commissioner provide me with a recording of a live or studio performance of the piece afterwards so I can share the piece with others. Those things are at least as important to me as a check.